getting Armando over the past couple of weeks, and literally right before this event, he and I just kind of got to chat. And as two gay Latino men, one who is has paved the way for me, I am honored to be here. I really am. I look forward to sharing my thoughts afterwards. But right now, what you're going to get to see is Armando is going to share his ephemera, as Laura talked about, with us, and share his thoughts, talk about what was he thinking, why did he paint what he did, and I think we're really in for a treat. So Armando, please, we look forward to seeing what you have to share with us.
Okay. Hold on. I'm waiting for the screen to. Screen. All right. I want to start with Thelonious Monk, done in the year 2000. It's on page 35 in the book. And I'm starting with a jazz theme because Thelonious Monk, a piano player, he was a pivot and a friend of my father's, and my father used to talk to him way back when he lived in the 50s and 60s streets between, I think, 7th and 9th Avenue, I believe. So my father inspired me to do jazz portraits, and from time to time on, you will see Thelonious Monk. I utilized fabric and acrylic paint to do this. I also formulated hieroglyphics or graffiti around the main part or portrait. Thelonious Monk is one of the first series that I did. I also did Charlie Parker, but you can see he's wearing his signature cat painted with some fabric collaged in. The graffiti around him represents his bar keys or piano keys as well. And my use of color, especially on the face, comes from collecting different masks. I've collected masks from Africa, from North and South America, as well as the Caribbean island. And I've been developing this style of using the colors to do the faces since the 90s. Okay, now next. The next is the shooting of Amadou Diallo. And this was done in 1999. It's on page 57 in the book. The Amadou series first started, I started doing the portraits, and then I started enlarging it from there. And this one is 4 pieces of rag paper taped together to portray this painting collage. He was an African merchant. He was about 22, 23 years old at the time. And he had a dream to make it in America like everybody else. Somebody was yelling, he got a gun, he got a gun. They found out later on that it was too late. He was pulling out a black wallet from his pocket, I guess to show his ID. And they shot 41 times, 19 times went into vital organs. And you have to think about that. 19 times went to vital organs. And so this is what I'm trying to portray here, the shooting, the bloodiness of all this. And at the time of this happened, I was living in the Bronx near Fordham Road, so I took it personally as an attack on me. You can see the Liberty statue arm on the left-hand corner, representing the stand for liberty in our ironic pun. And he's on the upper left-hand top side, and he's being shot. And this piece is about 44 by 60 inches. Okay, the next one. The Maria Song series Diptych, done in 1999, page 87 and 86. Maria's my sister, fiery Leo. I had promised my father at one point I would take care of her, but she had AIDS. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I used to visit her in different SROs, and mainly Bethesda Hospital, but other hospitals as well. The SRO that she was mainly in was Riverton House. She also lived with her boyfriend as well, but that didn't last too long. She was very independent and fiery in her own Leo sense. She learned and explained AIDS doesn't discriminate. Gay, straight, trans, you can get it. You have to be careful. I used to go visit her in Riverton House, New York City. Maybe I'll bring her chips or egg roll or pizza before I leave. She was on, she was on a medication regimen in the mid-90s. They called it cocktail intervention for AIDS, something along that line. I also did some poetry on this theme, Maria's song theme. When I became homeless, I forgot I had stored these in a friend's basement. In other words, he had a brownstone and I had stored them in his basement. And I didn't realize I had them till maybe like 12, 14 years later. And then when I discovered them, I said, oh, wow, I still have these, you know? So this is acrylic collage with symbols or hieroglyphics around the main bodies. And that's supposed to be two gay men. And then there's Maria and her boyfriend on the other side. Okay, the next is Dizzy and Arturo. Dizzy Gillespie and Arturo Sandoval, done in 2004, page 29. This is a painting collage version of two jazz giants. I like to incorporate the graffiti statement around them to represent the last of my abstract part of me. When I first went and got my bachelor's at City College, I was studying abstraction. I think that graffiti part is that part or imprint that I leave in my painting collage. I also like to work using yellow lately as a reflection of Buford Delaney. In this case, I utilize it to represent their clothing. Okay. The next one is Nourishing Ourselves. The Nourishing Ourselves series is an expression of my gay side. Can we just enjoy simple things like two men dancing or hugging? It was also a commission by someone who asked me to do them and their husband. So I started doing the men dancing in different positions, but in color to get my ideas and my thoughts together on this idea. And I added some collage, some paper collage to these surfaces. And but there's no fabric used here. You can see some symbols and designs around the bodies, very loose designs, or step to later graffiti that I utilize. Next is Michael's house. I think that's around 1997, 98 is page 113 in the book. I have a friend who had a house in Connecticut. His name was Michael. And in this rendition, this is a rendition of the house. There's some painting scrapes I glued on. There's some magazine cutout. Michael is represented in the bottom left-hand corner. The floating woman represents the spirit of the house. And to explain how things are recycled or reused, the house back in the 30s and 40s was really a concession stand for a train station. When the train stopped coming that way and it got rerouted, they recycled the house to be like a small, and they moved it and recycled it to be a small family house. And I thought that was an interesting house to portray in a painting. And an interesting idea, like for environmentalists to try, recycle spaces. Land of Liberty, Land of Jazz, next, page 66, year 2003. This is a homage to the freedom of expression, especially in the jazz music, dedicated to jazz musicians out there. I used the photo of the Liberty Bell to represent the freedom of the sound, the freedom of the music. The painting collage with graffiti towards the middle of the page. And there's some fabric collage. The Liberty Bell, I take it to mean the symbol of freedom from slavery, freedom from everything, freedom from gay hate, hate in general, bigotry. That's what I take it to mean. But on top of that, I take it to mean the freedom to be expressive too. If you have an expression or want to be creative and create music or art, that you have the freedom to do that. And you're not going to be terrorized or hunted down for that. So I take that to be that symbol. Okay. The next one is Spiral Love. Spiral Love is a graphic drawing that I did. It attempts to deal with sex, intimacy, and through pastels, both portray both male and female genders. And this was a play that I was doing, an interplay about male, female genders and thinking about planets. And it's page 131 and done in 1998. Next is Maria Song series Triptych. Now the Maria Song series Triptych, as well as some others in the book later on. This one is on page 82, 83, 1999. This was originally one of the pieces I still had, but I had thought, where was the rest of them? The rest of them were stored in the basement. So this painting collage, as well as most of the series, was based on Edward Monet's collage, Reclining Nude. So it's based on that, but then she's leaning on a skull. She's not leaning on a sofa like the original Edward Monet painting. And the man is holding a tray with condoms, sort of like a reflection or irony about what are we trying to protect? What are we trying to do here? And then you can see graffiti around her. The condom is also a statement about safe sex. Is it enough to protect? I don't know, because everybody was catching AIDS, So you can see in the background the graffiti surrounding them. And that one leads to the next one, Biggie Smalls' Tropicana. This is a rendition of Biggie with a Tropicana carton collage into his green suit. And I used to use different brands, Ritz Crackers, Cornflakes, Tropicana, on musicians to say that the music is fortifying, fortifying your mind, your body, your soul. So in this case, I use Tropicana. And the background has solvent transfers collage into it. And so if you're not familiar with solvent transfer, that's something that Robert Rauschenberg used to use sometimes in his prints, but I used it with Biggie Smalls in this. And that was done in the year 2000, page 121. Okay, next is Biggie Bears the Cross with Etta James, 2013, page 103. This is my portrayal, perhaps, of the cross, representing the struggle, the burden of stardom, the jealousy, and is Biggie bearing the cross. And Etta James represented as an angel in the upper left-hand corner. Stretched out on the bottom is a cat. The graffiti is imposed on both sides of the cross. And I used some fabric collage into it. And I was very much impressed. I have to be impressed with certain people in pop music. And I would say I was very much impressed with Biggie Smalls and what he was doing. So I decided to do him. I really felt like I lost something as far as his talent. So I felt like I needed to do something for him. And so I did this piece. Um, Etta James also had influenced me, although in a blues way, not in a pop way, but in a blues way. I like listening to jazz. I like listening to blues. So I decided to portray her as an angel behind him, just the wings and the head, you know. So, and then next is the portrait of Amadou Diallo. And this was in the 90s. I was beginning to develop my color palette according to facial contours. There's some collage element around him. I've also used some pennies in the collage, the symbolism being that one's life is not worth a penny. And yet, you see what happened. He came here with a big dream and he passed. And it wasn't worth it for his life. And that's what I'm trying to say with the pennies. Amadou Diallo was 23 years old at the time, 22, 23 years old at the time. And that's on page 53. Next is page 36, Billie Holiday, year 2002. Billie, Lady Day, done on a blue background with some element of collage, her hair streaming down behind her. And she's wearing a yellow dress, going back to Buford Delaney. The yellow symbol to me is like sunshine and a nice breeze. And so I like the way Buford Delaney uses yellow, and I like the way it looks on my painting. So I sometimes utilize that as the main color theme in my paintings. So next is Billie Holiday, Stormy Weather in a yellow background. When 9/11 happened in New York City, I was working at an office administration about 4 or 5 blocks from the Twin Towers. When the fire broke out from the airplane crash, everybody had to walk, including me, to 14th Street. You could take a taxi, but that's another story. Um, the main reason being that they suspected that the subway might have bombs. So they were saying to everybody, walk to 14th Street and then take the transportation from there while we inspect the subway below Canal Street, below 14th Street. So this is my personal portrayal or interpretation of that day, because I saw people flying from the Twin Towers. They didn't want to be burned. They were like, they crashed the window and they just flying. And I'm showing body parts and Billie is seated, and then I'm showing one tree and the fire going on amongst the Twin Towers on the right-hand side. And behind her is an African Congo warrior statue. And I believe the nails represent all the people that died, or the souls of the people. And the statue is still represents us standing in perseverance to the whole attack that the terrorist attack that took place that day. And then you see my graffiti in between Billie Holiday and the statue. Next, this is another version of Thelonious Monk. I call it Thelonious Monk 2, 2004. It was done on page 41. This portrait is a side portrait, almost silhouette. The beard of his is portrayed in gray and blue. He's wearing a green or yellow cap. And you see my graffiti on behind his cap and on the side of his face. Next is Felix Trinidad in green. year 2001, page 51. Felix face is divided in color planes and contours again to formalize a face. And I did this also in some pencil drawing, one or two that might appear in the book and other pages, but this one is on page 51. This is a painting collage. And one of my brothers was a sports fan of boxing. I've never been too much of a sports fan as far as boxing. Sports fans for bowling and other things, but not boxing, not that much. But I thought he was a handsome person and he could be a model. So I thought I would do him, you know. And I added other things in collage to it, magazine cutouts, and I put trend detergent, you know, to say, you know, let's fight be clean, you know, whatever that means. Because I don't know what goes on in boxing, you know. Anyway, the next one is Sister Gertrude Morgan, 2010, page 109. This is a fictional piece in one sense, but then it's true in another sense. What's true is that she was Sister Gertrude Morgan existed. She was a preacher in New Orleans. She had a revelation, she had a dream, a revelation that she was the bride of Christ, Jesus Christ. And since that day, she wore white. And she used to do these paintings, and she's known as a folk artist, and she does these paintings of the revelation and Bible sayings and teaching, and then she writes on them, you know, the teachings of the Bible. So I wanted to dedicate some paintings to her where she's dressed in white. But in this painting, I differed the whole thing. I put Thelonious Monk playing the piano, and I put animals, I put the church behind, and the church that's actually wallpaper that I utilized for that church, on wallpaper glued down. And there's an angel in the background with some fabric collaged into it with my graffiti towards the left-hand side and towards Thelonious Monk's back. Okay, next. The next one is Ashes to Ashes. Ashes to Ashes, I mean. Page 91, done in 2012. This is a rendition of my sister Yolanda, who passed due to breast cancer. The graffiti can be seen on either side of her shoulder with a figure on the right-hand side. The figure on the right-hand side is based on an African statue, and she's wearing a pink dress to represent a stance or a fight against breast cancer. And I put that red there, and then I thought about whether or not I was trying to patch my letting go of her breast cancer and her moving on as a soul, as a sister myself. But I never thought about that until later. And then you see this other fabric collage into it. And she used to, when she was young, she had long hair. And then when she passed, she had dreads, like down to her back, you know, long dreads. And she used to fix it up like in different styles up there on her head. So that's Yolanda portrayed in my own rendition. Now, next is the painting behind us, Madonna and UB Blake, page 97, done in 2009. Madonna is depicted with UB Blake playing piano as the child, Jesus. And this is like my own fiction idea of if you have Madonna and Jesus, but instead of Jesus have a jazz giant or have a jazz musician, who would it be? So I did 3 or 4 versions. One I did with UB Blake, one I did with Hector LeBeau, and another one I did with Chick Corea. So was it Chick Corea? No, Chick Webb, excuse me. So in this version, Madonna is portrayed with UB Blake, and there's a horse on either side of them. you can see that Madonna's neck is collaged in fabric, and the face of Madonna is based on an African mask. And that was in 2009 on page 97. And then now I'm confused. That is? That's it. Wait a minute. Is there one more? That's it. I think I wanted to read it. Yeah, I had actually, like, my assistant Stephanie asked me about reading the poem, and I said I would try to read the poem. And oh, is that viewed to them? Can they see that? That's the okay. The thing that you're seeing in front of you is the other Maria song series, and that's her on the left hand proof picture, the left hand upper left hand corner. But then the others portray they're like diptychs, two sheets of rag paper taped together, and they're based on Edward Monet's pose in two of them as well, but other things are going on, like the ocean. I'm trying to say that her soul got released into the earth, the air, the world. And I'm portraying, at the time, she had marks on her body, and I wasn't sure how to portray them. In one painting, I portrayed it as a design. Another painting, I portrayed it as eyes on her skin. So I thought that maybe she was, because the way she talked about them, they were itching, and I said, maybe I'll portray them as eyes. So I portrayed them as eyes on her skin. Okay. I'm going to read now two of the Maria songs poems. Okay. Maria song. Life was so sweet, like a juicy orange for her. A dark rose, black as the night, sweet as the moon. She cascaded, coward, towards the heaven, an angel walking upon God's path, a blessed spirit, caressing the air, prancing with wind, and longing to reach for her boyfriend. Horses' hooves prancing in the wind, little Maria watched the clouds from heaven. Little Maria, a woman high above, how she bends down to watch us roam. Fly on, Maria, fly on angel's wings. And then there's a second poem. They're both called Maria Song. Maria Song 1, Maria Song 2, Maria Song 3. But this is the one that I found. There was like 4 or 5. I lost 2. I only have 1 and I have 3 or something like that. I don't know what happened to the other poem. I don't know. When you become homeless, you lose a lot of paperwork. Yeah, you need to have an IRS investigate who the people that took your stuff. Anyway, Maria's song. I visited and watched you wither like an old oak tree, HIV and young, and yet old as far as the sickness, nestled between your womb. Shh, shh. Don't tell me you didn't use protection. I told you, even though you are positive, you have to protect yourself. There's different viruses, strains that can bedevil the bones, suck dry the very soul, leaving dust for withered skin. Glistening smiles were your last words as your body crumbled in mass coma, heaving plastic, dial-like motion. My poor sister, soul cascading to another realm. Her physical body still heaving, living mechanically. I watched you crumble. I prayed helplessly for your light. I watched you leave and didn't resist. we moaned our sister. Like it wasn't it? Our own reflections. You knowing my weakness, my knowing your positive state, your light heaving spirit succumb to the sky horizon. I, relinqu- I relinquish, I did not know you, nor recognize you anymore in the darkness. I called your name only to remember shared secrets and thoughts we hugged and wrapped amongst ourselves. So that's the Maria Song series. And I just want to say that in one painting, I don't have her per se, because I'm representing that she's passed, but it has the bird of paradise flower. The bird of paradise flower is set to give life. And above it is a skull. So it's like a metaphor, like between life and death. But she's gone. And so it's like the blooming of death and the rapid spread of the disease. I'm trying to portray that in that painting with the ocean beyond, you know. And I didn't intend to make the Maria Song series something beautiful. I just merely wanted to express that she was going through a metamorphosis, moving on, passing. And that was my only purpose, to describe the metamorphosis of her life and death of hers. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you, Armando. Yeah, that your paintings, your poems really hit me, I have to admit. They helped me as someone who is a decade younger than you and came out, as I was saying to Laura, I came out as a young gay man into a world with HIV, knowing I was 12 years old when that small little article in the New York Times came out about the rare cancer in homosexuals, and the fear, what that was like. And I have also been living with HIV since 1996. And I have been blessed because I know that the struggle and the death that you saw, Armando, I can't even imagine. And I just want to thank you.
You're welcome.
What you saw made the world different because you all pushed and said that we will not die. Because I will never forget that I remember being, when I was first diagnosed, sitting in a HIV support group, and I was looking around and there was a single mom who was on relief, and there was a sex worker, and there was this white male lawyer who had everything, and and it was a whole bunch of us. And I looked around and I realized what we all had in common was that we were the ones that society said did not matter. And I just want to thank you because these pictures, paintings, these poems remind me that we have always mattered and we will always matter. And I just want to thank you for that. I just want to, before we get into questions, I did want to just make some observations for the students in the audience. This book is a history lesson that I want you to learn from. One of the things that we have not always done as elders, and being now almost 53, I am slowly admitting that yes, I'm an elder. We share what we went through.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about the pain. Sometimes the trauma was too hard, seeing the death. Diallo's murder, when you were talking about that, Armando, I remember the numbness. I remember the rage. I remember the fear.
Mhm.
And we didn't prepare you all for what was going to come. The end of this month, Trayvon Martin was killed 10 years ago.
Right.
You know, and we didn't. So, but this is a history lesson for you all, and to remind us that what art can do. Art can open up a world and remind us and make us feel. And that's what I want to thank you, Armando. You helped me feel those things again. Looking at the paintings of the two men kissing, and the two men remembering what that was like the first time I kissed a boy. You know, that like, it was fair, but that this is who I am. So I just want to thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So I do want to get into, so we do have a question.
Oh,
So from Rosa Williams asked, first of all, Armando, I have to see,
tell her I said hello. Hello. Yes, what does she have to ask?
so first of all, I need to say I thought that you were the bomb.com anyway, but when you said that you liked Biggie, I was like, okay, see, I knew I liked Armando. So Rosa wants to know, how did you decide to juxtapose people like Etta James with Biggie, etc.? Like, how did you figure that out? How did you decide?
Well, it's like there's a certain order to music. And I think that if we look at modern music, we have to first think about, blues, jazz. But then we have to look, if we look further, we have to look at like, how would you say, the slave songs, the jail prison songs, and the church songs, you know what I mean? So I think in that hierarchy, I was thinking, if I put Biggie bearing the cross, who's gonna be the angel? It either has to be a jazz singer or a blues singer to be the angel. Because if Biggie's bearing the cross, who's the angel that's supposed to help him? So I said, Etta James.
Wonderful, wonderful. And so we have another question about the book is dedicated in part to Basquiat. Is he your biggest artistic influence? Basquiat, sorry about that.
We were friends in high school. I was a senior, he was a junior, and we knew each other. And I dedicated the book to him partially, as well as to some family members that passed, because I always felt like he didn't stick around to see that he could survive HIV, and move forward. He didn't really like stick with the movement and the regimen of HIV cocktails and everything else that needs to be done, the sleep, the rest. He was just like metamorphosizing into something else all the time. And when you see the movie of him and you see him sleeping in a cardboard box and having like donut for breakfast. When you're HIV positive, that's not what you're supposed to be doing, So, but I do remember that he influenced me, and he said, you can be a great artist. And I was saying to him, you can. I could see it in your work. And then he said he saw something in my work. Anyway, here I am. And there he is, but he's long gone. Wow. He's up there.
Yes. Yes. And folks, you all should know that, like, when he just said that, like, oh, I went to high school with him, Armando earlier just dropped stuff like, oh, I knew Marsha P. Johnson. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, so Armando, because of where he has been in New York, has been, it's one of the things I love, just hearing him be like, oh yeah, I knew that person. And I'm just like, wow.
Yeah.
So Yeah, I think we do have one question from Kiara Bressett. Do you think that these paintings and poems you created helped you heal from all the pain and suffering you went through?
I'm not sure it helped me heal, but I know one thing, it helped me think about, first of all, if I hadn't found them, the question is, what would have happened? Because it would have been still lost, with this, how would you say, it would have still been with the Adams family of cobwebs and spider webs somewhere in somebody's basement. And then somebody would say, oh, this is garbage, throw it away, that type of thing. So I think it's a blessing that I found them in the first place, the Maria Song series. And then I realized, oh, I had the poem, but he had it stored in his basement. I didn't put one and one together. I completely forgot because I was homeless. And then when I found a place, I couldn't figure out this and that in a bit. But when things started to come together, I realized I really have a diptych and a triptych dedicated to Maria. I should show it because it's important to know where you come from. And
Yes.
so it's important. It was important enough for me to say, yes, this has to be put in the book. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. No, and I think that's one of the things. It's so important. I love that. Like, this needs to be shared. This needs to be shared. The next question is, how did you decide to make the church plaid? And this is Rosa again. Beautiful painting.
I had been given, sometimes people give me things. They say, Armando, here's a scarf, or here's some fabric. I'm through working on this, I'm through working on that. Can you use it? And I'll say, yeah. So somebody had given me wallpaper, and it was all like streams of orange and red and yellow. And I said, I could use it to make a building if I cut it, the arch on top. And then, so I figured it out using wallpaper. And then I got worried because wallpaper is a different consistency from rag paper. It's just, how's this gonna work? It's almost like you're saying glue canvas on paper, you're not
Right.
supposed to do it in that order. So, but it worked out.
Yeah. Emily wants to know, could you talk about the hieroglyphics that appear throughout your art?
Well, the hieroglyphics, at one point, it was a language. When I was a teenager, people asked me if I knew shorthand, and I never knew shorthand. I just left out the vowels and kept on writing whenever they were talking. And I considered that shorthand. And then later on, I started inventing codes, for the whole alphabet. There's a code. And for the first 10 numbers, there was a code. And I was utilizing that. But then that was before I became homeless. And so I had lost that knowledge. I don't know where it is, to tell you the truth. I was living on 10th Street at one point, and it might be there still, but I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Mm-hmm.
That was like in the 80s, and this is 2021. Who's to say that it's there?
Right.
It's probably gone. But I started dealing with the hieroglyphics again as the abstract part of me, because when I was at City College in the 80s, the early 80s, I was studying abstract painters like what's his name? Henry Moore, Henry Moore, and some other abstract people. So even Picasso had an abstract phase.
Yep.
It was with the Cubists, but I was studying that, and that made me think, let me do abstract, And so I think that's the last part of that abstract part of me that comes out when I do that hieroglyphics on the pieces.
Could you talk about Kate asked, can you talk about your art practice now? What have you been working on lately?
I'm trying to remember. Well, we discussed before Marshall Johnson, but that was a while back. I just finished doing Queen Latifah because I like her in the jazz. I like her rap.
Yep.
I'm not gonna say I could rap better than her. She could rap better than me, you, and everybody else, as far as I know. But I like her as far as like, what is it? Lush Life,
Yeah.
jazz songs along that line. Lush Life. She sang Lush Life on the radio and some other songs that she sings. And I say, hey,
Yeah.
that's really awesome,
Yeah.
So I like certain songs that she sings, and I can't remember the other person I did, but I'm trying to remember now. It's in my phone, but I can't recollect. I know I just finished doing something, a commission, Ronnie Spector, right. So I went to see her at Brooklyn College and I was impressed. And then I was thinking, she's Puerto Rican. She grew up in Washington Heights. I was in Washington Heights. I was at City College. I was in Washington. I was thinking all these little similarities, And then I see her singing, it was about Christmas time. And she was singing, how's that song go? Well, anyway, she sang this song, and then when the saxophone played, I was like, "Oh wow, so beautiful,"
Mm-hmm.
And I started branching out, doing other people like painters and writers. So I did like Buford Delaney. I did Bob Thompson because Bob Thompson has influenced me to do animals in silhouette. Buford Delaney influenced me to wear yellow paint a lot with lots and lots of yellow paint, Even in Ron Carter's Samba, you can see the yellow theme running through it, So,
And
that.
oh, sorry about that, Armando.
No, I said I hope I answered that question.
Oh yes, no, you totally did. And Kai Bunch asks, love the thought in the artwork. What is your process and how long does one piece take?
What is the process? The process, well, it's mixed media. I use pennies. Right now I use, I don't use pennies anymore. I've moved on. I use these gazillion dollar because they're so nice. They're almost real. I call it gazillion. But it's fake,
Yep.
In God we can, it's fake. It's got it. I use those. I use paper. I use fabric. Sometimes I start to sketch, and then I go from there. From there, I go into the Glooming mixed media process. Then I go back to painting and figuring out what's going to go with the fabric colors and the movement of the piece.
Wonderful. So I think that is the only questions that we have. So there is someone who, I don't know if you can see, Cassandra, there is someone who knew you from Rainbow back in the 80s with Mark Steven.
Oh.
Died, Mark Steven gifted me with your small print, The Angel Appeared. I treasure this.
Oh, great. Thank you. I hope you enjoy it. I kind of remember the piece, but in like a very foggy way. I remember printing it, and it was an etching, I believe. Is it etching? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, well, I hope you enjoy it. I just want to thank and mention, I want to thank Tiana Nakia McClellan for the essay in the back of the book, where she really goes into detail about certain things and her impression, because that's the forward is what makes the book other than my own word. So I just want to thank her for her inclusion in the book.
So first of all, I want to thank Armando for coming. Armando, this has been a wonderful, wonderful event. Emily, I think that the library is off to an amazing start with this series. Danny is putting the discount code for Armando's book, which I will be purchasing tomorrow. So luckily, Stephanie had emailed that to me, so I'm going to do that tomorrow.
Oh, great. Fabulous.
One of the things that I love, Armando, is how many people from your life from literally 40 years ago have showed up tonight. That showed someone who had an influence. I can only hope one day to have that type of influence. So thank you all for joining us.
Wow. Thank you.
Armando, thank you for being such a wonderful person to share your pictures with us. And we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Armando.
And thank you, Chris, so much for your.
Oh, this has been a joy.
Yes, and Armando, it's been such a pleasure.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Good night.
Thank you all for coming. A wonderful night.